You guys have a little red light that comes on too?
Yeah, we do, yeah. So we're good, yeah. So maybe we should just, I'm not sure that you know everybody here. Should we go around the room?
Sure, that would be great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
David Durfee, I represent Shaftesbury, Glastonbury, and Sunderland.
Rodney.
Jed Lipsky, Lamoille 1, Stowe.
Henry Pearl.
Yep.
Danville, Beecham, Cabot.
Mike Rice, Bennington, Rutland, Danby, Dorset, Landgrove, Mount Tabor, and Peru.
John O'Brien, Welton and Tunbridge.
Esme Cole, Windsor 6, Hartford.
Nice to meet you all.
Do we have anybody on Zoom?
No.
No, Rick Levitt's not there well.
Okay, all right. Oh, we've got one late at road, just introducing ourselves.
Sorry, I'm David Templeman, Orleans 3.
Catch your breath, David. Catch your breath.
Thank you.
So I'm State Senator Brian Collmore. I represent the Rutland County District, which is actually all the towns in the county except Pittsfield, which went back over to Windsor County. But we grabbed Mount Holly in the interim, and they used to be in Windsor, so. So I'm here on Senate Bill 115. This is one of two miscellaneous ag bills. Representative Pearl, I believe, came down and did the other one in front of our committee. And as I understand it, the requests, it came from the agency, and we just kind of split them in two, and one chamber did one and one chamber did the other. So I'm just going to refer to my floor notes, but by all means, if you have questions, please, I think I can answer them. Section 1 has to do with livestock quarantine. So currently, statutes allow for the Secretary of the Agency of Ag to order a quarantine for any domestic animals that have been affected by contagious disease, exposed to contagious disease, or may be infected by contagious disease. Section 1 in our bill would add that the Secretary may order the same quarantine if the animals are suspected of having been exposed to biological or chemical agents that may cause milk or dairy products to be adulterated or otherwise unsafe for human consumption. It seemed a relatively, not innocuous, but easy change to make in the statute to allow the Secretary a little bit more flexibility. The next three sections all update the state egg law. Many of these have not been updated since the early 70s, and they need to be updated to conform with modern standards. So Section 2 adds that a person may not advertise or label eggs in a false or misleading manner, sell eggs that do not satisfy the requirements for the sale of eggs, and may not sell eggs that are adulterated. Section 3 strikes an obsolete reference to an agency's division that no longer exists in the enforcement authority, and that's all under the egg law as well. And then Section 4 specifies how the Secretary of Ag would provide notice of violation of the egg law. The general process for notifying a farmer of a violation is to first issue the farmer a warning with a description of the alleged violation, identifying the authority to issue the notice, identification of the application violation, and then the required corrective action. This section would also require the same warning with identification of application violation of the egg law and the necessary corrective action. The Secretary can still immediately act to address a violation. As the notice of violation is discretionary, the agency may issue a written warning. Section 5 deals with penalties for violations of Title VI. Section 5 updates the agency's authority for penalties under the egg law. Again, that was last updated in 1973. But instead of setting new penalty amounts, Section 5 will cross-reference the agency's general enforcement authority, including the default administrative penalties for any ag violation, authority for a cease and desist order, and for any corrective orders. Section 6 has to do with the overall enforcement authority of the agency. It amends the default administrative penalty amount for any agricultural violation. Section 6 would increase the maximum penalty from $1,000 to $5,000. It's permissive, doesn't have to go to the $5,000, but the Secretary would have that authority. And then Section 6 also increases the maximum penalty for continuing violations. The first one that I mentioned that went from $1,000 to $5,000 is for a single incident. The other one is for continuing violations, and that increases the maximum from 25,000 to 50,000. Section 7 has to do with water quality. It clarifies when capital equipment assistance grants may be issued for certain purposes. Specifically, the section would be amended to allow for awards for equipment to mitigate greenhouse gases instead of what is in law now, which reads to decrease greenhouse gas emissions. The agency believes it's a more accurate term for the purpose of the eligible equipment. It gives them, again, a little bit more of flexibility. And then the last, sections 8 and 9 are about stormwater management control. We had quite a go-around with this. I'll read you what we had in our original bill. It was later pulled out by the Finance Committee, and there is instead a study that will be done to figure out who was right legally. Sometimes when you get more than one lawyer in a room, you get 3 different opinions, and that became the case this way. So anyway, originally in our bill, Section 8 would have prohibited municipalities from exercising stormwater management authority, including the assessment of stormwater fees against farms. Currently, municipal bylaws cannot regulate the RAPs. And similarly, state stormwater operating permits are not required for stormwater runoff from farms in compliance with those RAPs. Farms are exempt from state water storm operating requirements because the RAPs are water quality measures from non-point source runoff. Nevertheless, some municipalities, through bylaw or ordinance, began to attempt to regulate the stormwater fees, and including the assessment of fees which would exceed the authority of the state to regulate those same stormwater runoff situations. So Section 8 clarifies that the authority municipalities have to regulate the stormwater runoff from farms cannot exceed ANR's authority. Again, it became sort of a complicated legal issue where Mike O'Grady, who of course you well know, feels very strongly that in order to get a medium or a large farm permit, you already are paying a firm permit fee, including a stormwater part. I mean, that's where it all goes to the water quality part of the agency. So they're already paying once for it. And then some of the municipalities were in essence charging them twice by put these other fees in. So we wanted to do away with that. There was some discussion, to be frank, about whether or not municipalities could do that. So that, and then the Section 9, which said that the above section, which I just read, that the municipal stormwater regulations must apply prospectively so that it would not require a municipality to, in essence, refund those fees to farms that they'd already double charged, if you want kind of what we felt. So they didn't have to go back and write a check to the farms that they'd already charged that additional fee to, but going forward, they couldn't charge them anymore. And then the last section is just the effective date, July 1st. So again, Senate Finance came in behind us and took a look at it. And basically what they've done is they've ordered or asked for a whole bunch of people to get together and figure out who's right. And in the meantime, there's a moratorium for 1 year on municipalities charging any of the stormwater fees. So that's where we stood. And that was added to our Senate 115 bill. So the committee vote was 5-0-0. If you want, I can run over the witness list, but they're, I'm sure, familiar folks. Most of them were from the agency, the state veterinarian, the assistant, Vermont League of Cities and Towns was in with regard to that stormwater issue. E.B. Flory, Steve Collier, Laura DePietro, Vermont Farm Bureau, Vermont Dairy Producers Alliance, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the bill, and good afternoon. Good to see you. Anybody have questions? I'll try to answer them.
Did the Ag Committee then take a vote on the amendment, on Finance's amendment?
We talked about it. Again, it's more of a legal issue than it is a policy issue in terms of the Ag Department. So I believe when I stood up, I said that we considered it an acceptable amendment to our bill. I didn't use the word favorable. I said it was acceptable. And so it went out that way. There weren't any questions on the floor. And as I recall, it was a unanimous voice vote on the floor too.
All right, questions, Representative O'Brien?
Ryan, how many farms got caught up in this? Did you hear any testimony?
Yeah, I did. And that's a good question, John. So the total farm facilities in each town that in essence were coming under these additional fees, there were 19 in Colchester, 8 between Essex, Essex Junction and Essex Town. I guess they all call themselves Essex now. 13 in Shelburne, 4 in South Burlington, 28 in St. Albans Town, and 11 in Williston. I will say, although I wasn't in the room, anecdotally, I heard that it was the St. Albans group that came in to finance, said, hey, wait a minute now, we've been depending on these fees for a while and we don't want to have to go without them. So who's right on this? And that'll be the question. Attorney O'Grady's fairly insistent that his interpretation of the law is the correct one. So we'll see what happens.
So not all dairy farms?
No, it was only some of the municipalities that decided to charge those farms twice, if you will.
Wow.
All dairy farms now that get the MFO or LFO permit pay into the water quality thing. That's what part of their permit fee is for.
Some of the farms were not dairy farms who got caught up in this?
No, I think these were all,
All dairy farms?
I believe so. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure, but I think so.
Other questions?
Geez, I'm off the hook pretty easily. Oh,
What's an adulterated egg?
Yeah. Good call.
a bad egg, I guess. It's where the shell has been cracked perhaps, or, there's been some sort of bacteria interaction with it or something. You wouldn't want to eat it.
Right, yeah. Okay.
I'm sure the agency can come up with a much more eloquent definition, but that's how I took it.
I thought maybe the goose got into that.
Duck egg.
All right, well, it's always good to see you folks, and hopefully we'll be taking up, we did already walk through it a couple times, I think. I don't anticipate any major changes. There may be a couple tweaks, but so we should get yours back and vice versa and go along our happy way.
Yeah, we worked very hard on that bill, so
Yeah.
I'm sure.
The other one, I'll be honest, we took up was the bill for small farmers and granting them a little bit of relief with a grant program of 15. And I believe Michael O'Grady testified, so I can say it, it's all in the record. He said he rarely has ever worked as hard on a bill as that bill. And he complimented the folks in this room for spending a lot of time and careful, thoughtful work on it. So we're hoping that we can reach a pretty common solution to that, because I think it is important. We didn't change the money. It'd still be 15,000 and it's still 350 that would be appropriate. Of course, that'll get stripped out when it gets to approps, but hopefully we'll get it back in.
Yeah, right.
Because I think it does fill a niche that isn't being filled right now.
Yeah.
So it's important.
We had bipartisan sponsorship on that bill, and I think there was a lot of work that was done before it even got to committee.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good, well, thank you.
Okay, my pleasure. Great to see you all.
Thank you.
Thanks. You want the shut still?
Sure, yeah, thanks. So Laura, we don't have anyone else right now today on this bill. So I think we're so next on this bill, we'll have Michael Grady come in and go through the language, and he's not available this afternoon. I'm not sure if he'll be available tomorrow.
I'll work on it. He's
Yeah.
not at the moment.
Yeah, so if we don't get to it tomorrow, we've got him blocked out for Tuesday, and we'll work on it then. And it seems like it's not as long, it's only 9 pages, so it might not be as much work. That's all we've got for this afternoon.
That's
If
great.
anybody's had further thoughts on the other bills that we were working on this morning?